Welcome back to the Shaka Movement's Malama, Aina TV show here at Akaku Studios in beautiful downtown Kahului. Our thanks to a volunteer crew and Akaku. You know, where would this community be without Akaku? And there are forces at play that would like to take this television station away from you. Don't let that happen. You have to support independent media, or else we are all in big, big trouble. Because the message coming to you through the corporate media is a corporate message that is sanitized and prepackaged and pre-designed for your consumption to keep you as consumers so that they can just keep making profits. The agrochemical companies here in Maui County have been actively engaged in focus group testing their message. They're trying to understand, they're trying to get into the local psyche and understand, you know, what motivates people to vote in certain ways, because they want you to vote against this moratorium for all the wrong reasons. They want you to vote against the moratorium on GMO field operations and chemical testing, open air chemical testing, because they want to be able to continue to exploit these islands for their own profit purposes. They are not feeding the world in any beneficial way. They are attempting to make profits. That's their only mission. As a corporation, they're designed and bound to do that legally for their shareholders. If they don't do everything towards making a profit, if they do anything calculated that takes money away from the shareholders, they can be sued. So they don't do that. They do everything for their profit initiative. And we here, quite innocently in Maui County, just got, you know, sort of taken over. They quietly came here 30 years ago and started buying up the seed companies and buying up the industry of seeds. These are chemical companies that bought up the agricultural companies. Chemical companies whose job it is to sell chemicals. They moved in on the agricultural industry through genetically modifying the seeds. And they've quietly built an industry here on Maui County that is, it's a manufacturing process. It's not farming. It's not farming. This is not what you think of when you think of farming. They are not growing anything that you can eat. They're not growing anything that any people can eat. They're growing a modified version of corn, which is shipped around the world from this island off. Nobody can eat it. It's shipped at a profit for them to other places in the world where they grow the corn for industrial purposes. It's corn oil that's used in fuels, and it's used to feed livestock. So it does get into the food chain. They grow this corn that has been modified. Every cell of the corn has been modified to produce pesticides. The living plant is a factory for pesticides that on paper are not intended for human consumption. But there's pollen. Pollen happens. Pollen's out there in the environment. People breathe it in. And they've got all kinds of technical things that they'll say about why that's not harmful to people, but none of that stuff has been proven. So we are at risk. You are at risk. Your children are at risk to practices that are designed for their profits. And that's not Pono. That's not right. You don't deserve that. You didn't sign on for that. None of us did. And we have an opportunity before they express their political power to take away our right through farming bills. They're trying to confuse the issue and take away our right to regulate what kind of farming practices go on here in Maui County. And don't you let them do it. You've got senators in Honolulu that are stabbing you in the back, and you need to stop it. We've got an opportunity in November to stop it. And we need you need you to step up to the plate and make a difference, because you can. Now is the time. So that's a little bit of a diatribe. My name is Sam Small, and I'm happy to be here presenting to you, information that we get from a variety of different sources all around the world, not just a single source. The pro-GMO information that is being crafted for your consumption. They're paying people $100 a dinner. They get steak dinner. Come, we'll give you $100. Let us show you our marketing materials, and you tell us what you think about it. So they're busily crafting a very slick, very professional message that they think is going to be effective to you to get you to vote against your own best interests. That's their job. They do their job very well. Don't fall for it. We search out information and present educational information to the public that is not filtered through any corporation. Pro-GMO, anti-GMO, pro-organic, we're not funded by any of that. We're funded by regular people. We've been funded by Maui residents. And we've recently opened up a Kickstarter campaign. So individuals from around the world who have an understanding of how we here in Maui County are being exploited, and how the seeds that are grown here and shipped off for sale elsewhere is exploiting other people all around the world. These people have an understanding, and they're starting to contribute, and we'd like you to contribute too. Go to shakamovement.org. There's a donate button there. It'll take you to our Indiegogo campaign, where you can make a contribution that you're comfortable with. There's lots of little perks and different things that you can get. There's honey that's grown in Maui County. There's a number of different things that you can get. We've got some cool graphics. Bumper stickers and all kinds of stuff that you can get to help spread the word, because the people of Maui County have stood up and said enough already, and are doing things that people here don't usually do. As a culture, the Hawaiians are modest, and they don't step up and make noise or draw attention to themselves. But this issue's different, and there are people, Hawaiians by culture, by heritage, that are stepping up because they understand, they see what's going on. They've educated themselves, and they have an understanding. And with us today is one of our local, Alika Atay, is a member of this community. You grew up here on Maui. Is one of the 5 sponsors, citizens who put forth this ballot initiative. So Alika, thank you so much.
Hello, Sam.
And we're going to, sort of explain and talk about why. If you would, just a little bit of your background and growing up here and being a farmer. How'd all that come about?
Well, first off, I was born and raised here on Maui. Actually born out in Hana. Reside now out in Hawaiian homes out in Waihee. Currently actively farming all over Maui. Primarily doing natural farming. My involvement with the initiative, one day I received a phone call about the potential of taking this initiative forward, and if I would be interested in participating. And as they were busy on the line, it was a conference call to me, and I was introduced to the Shaka people through other fellow Hawaiian leaders. And I already knew my decision. It was, it was definitely going to be yes.
Why?
Mainly because of one word. And I think that word is kuleana. Mm-hmm. And kuleana is the responsibility that you carry. Me in particular, I carry, I represent my family and represent my ohana and my ancestors, and with that, that's in itself.
That's a big job right there.
That's a job to just to look and carry on the responsibility
Sure.
of looking after the children, looking after the kupuna, looking after the Aina, the land, looking after the water and the natural resources, looking after the air, looking after the sea life, the marine life, and all the things in the ocean. You look at, that's your kuleana.
Yeah.
And you see any of those areas being affected, and you also can look at what are going to be the effects as you go forward.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a if you're like, for myself, I was born and raised here, and so we need to preserve and protect and perpetuate our Aina,
Right.
and perpetuate our culture.
Right.
And so
And how did you get into farming?
farming was, I guess, was a deep-seated passion, probably introduced to me by my tutu.
As all good things.
And when I was a young boy, I never realized what they were doing, always making me come along with them to work the Aina. And it was late in my life that I came to the conclusion that I guess, the seeds they planted was intended as part of my destiny to go back.
Right.
And Malama, the Aina. Interesting, yesterday we were farming, and one of my fellow workers, were out there farming, and we said, we cannot look at this as work. We don't say we're going to work.
Right.
We're going aloha, the Aina. And so, we right there, definitely everybody asked me, well, what you do? I said, we aloha Aina.
Right.
you know.
And that's why you practice a form of natural farming
Right.
that doesn't use heavy pesticides or chemical applications.
Right, right. More, you know, I mean, well, our ancestors have been here well over 1,000 years.
Sure.
You know?
Feeding themselves.
You know, when they first came here, you know, it was survival. And once they mastered surviving, they then looked around and then created a place that was thriving.
Right.
And they thrived not for 10 years, not for 20 years, not even for 100 years. They thrived for over 1,000 years.
Thousands.
You know?
Yep.
I sometimes joke with the kids. I work with a lot of kids, teaching them. And I ask them, who is this guy Columbus? When was he born? Or when was he recognized? And when did he get credit for discovering the world? What year was that? I don't know what.
1492.
1492.
Yeah. Columbus
Yeah.
sailed the ocean.
Yeah. And then we say, and you know, all of the Hawaiian kids all know Kamehameha the Great. And they say, oh, who is this Kamehameha the Great? When was he? You know, when was he born? And so, 1700s, huh? So, 1492, 1700s, baby. Our ancestors were sailing the Pacific Ocean from island to island for well over 1,000 years before Columbus.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Columbus get the credit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Captain Cook.
But it's there, you know. So why I share this is because our people have survived and sustained and thrived here in these islands.
In balance.
Yeah. And so what proof do we have to say, oh, that we can be sustainable? What proof do we have that we can farm naturally? Yeah. In fact, how does the name conventional farming get the terminology conventional farming?
That's just marketing. That's public relations. That's marketing. That's you know, those are the companies that have, you know, done a very good job of establishing their particular profit-driven paradigm as what's normal. That's what people think is normal.
Yeah.
They had, you know, there's an educational program in the schools here in Hawaii, and there's a accelerated program of scientific-minded kids that came together, and the presentation was made to the kids. It's a comic book. We showed it in the last show, and it's a comic book that's written for kids to normalize GMO and DNA manipulation, that process is going to save the poor Hawaiian farmer who's moving off the land because they can't make it.
Right.
And the kid won't have their favorite cookie. The kid won't, in the future, she has a dream. She can't have her favorite foods because the farmers have left the land because farming's too hard to do without DNA manipulation and heavy pesticides. And they bring this as a comic book into the schools. It's insulting. I'm not even Hawaiian, and it's insulting. I can't imagine what it feels like, you know, to you. And people of culture who have a rich heritage of living these lands in perfect harmony.
And that's that. You know, it's like, how do we live in harmony with the land?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The land is the chief.
Yeah. The motto, the state motto, you know, is typically translated as the life of the land is perpetuated through righteousness. I never quite understood that. There's an alternate wording that sounds so much more true. That life is perpetuated through a balanced relationship with the land.
Yeah,
Pono, balanced.
Yeah.
That life is literally perpetuated through a balanced relationship with the land. That's the deep abiding respect that I understand Hawaiians to come from. And so an operation, these chemical seed companies, these chemical companies that have come to Hawaii, these chemical companies that have positioned themselves in Maui to control a significant level of the power that gets asserted here, they have no understanding of that. That's not what they're about. That's not why they're here. And they are taking over. They're taking over our public process. They're taking over our political process. Don't let them do it. I beg you.
Well, my involvement on this moratorium initiative was primarily from the angle of the involvement of pesticides. You know, and very, very concerned with the heavy use and very questioning what kind of pesticides, what kinds of poison, what kinds of chemicals.
Right.
Is it really good for our Aina? Is it good for our soil? And so I look and use hindsight. And I say, you know, hindsight, you know, that was the part that I had a hard time about our local politicians of not being able to come to a decision and choosing to let it go forward onto the ballot.
Right. They had an opportunity. The county council had an opportunity to ratify this proposal, and they didn't do it. They threw up their hands and said that you know, it's too complex an issue. They're too afraid of the process. and they caved. And so between now and November, the only thing anybody's going to be talking about Maui County are GMO and pesticides.
Right.
And that's what the world is going to hear leading into the elections. It's not a presidential election year, so the news services and stuff are going to be desperate for stories about in the election. And this GMO moratorium is going to be an international story. The companies are dumping millions of dollars into this market to try and persuade you to vote against your best interests. And that in itself is going to become part of the story. And will show the world how important this is.
Well, that's why I wanted to go back to hindsight.
Yeah.
Is the issue of pesticides. 40 years ago, DDT was sprayed on our lands.
Right.
And to the level to where DDT leached through the soil.
Sure.
And it leached all the way down
Into the water supply.
into our water supply. Okay. And so that our water supply was tainted.
Right.
Fast forward to 40 years.
40 years later.
Yeah. The county council meets. They cannot say that water well is cleared to drink.
It's not clear to drink. The chemicals are still in the aquifer there.
Right.
There's a remediation program that they had to sue the companies, sue the manufacturers who said it wouldn't get into the water supply. The chemical manufacturers promised it wouldn't get into the water supply. And lo and behold, it got into the water supply.
Yeah.
And so they were sued, and they had to set up a remediation plan. We still can't drink that water.
That's why. That's the other part. Their farming practice, because of our location and our weather, they farm unlike the Midwest farmers. The Midwest farmers, they'll farm in their season. There's usually a fallow period, primarily after the harvest. Winter will set in. Pretty much no more spraying going on.
Right.
But here, perfect weather year round. If they so choose, they could be spraying 24/7. Now, it's not only, the cycle, the farming today, or it's primarily use of chemicals.
Yeah. It's a different style of farming.
Yeah, so you're going to prep your soil, you're going to spray chemicals.
Right.
You're going to see weeds, you're going to spray herbicides.
Right.
You're going to see bacteria or fungus, you're going to spray a fungicide.
Right.
So there's
yeah, they're talking about 80 different chemicals that get sprayed for their BT corn process in growing these standardized commercial product. It's not food, it's an industrial product that they're growing here and shipping off the island, with leaving behind all of their pesticides, all of their poisons, and just taking away profits. And they do it, like you're saying, here because of our excellent climate, they get to do it 4 times a year. Their growing seasons, they get 3 or 4 crops in, and with each one of those crops, they spray their whole complement of chemicals. Again, that doesn't take place on the mainland, where they grow normally. This is this chemical style of farming. When it's done on the mainland, they get 1 crop, they get 1 exposure to the pesticides and chemicals. We're getting 4 times that here in the Hawaiian Islands.
Yeah, and I think the other concern would be where they're spraying, or the proximity of schools and other neighborhoods and so on. And so, then you got to worry about the chemical drift and possibility. The possibility should be there any storm and any of these chemicals being taken downstream, which would end up in the ocean, and what are the potential effects or effects onto the marine life there with all of these different kinds of chemicals.
Well, we know it's killing the reefs. We know that the chemical and pesticide load is going beyond a point where the ecosystem can absorb it. There are adverse effects being felt everywhere. This is accumulated. You know, they keep saying that, oh, we've been doing this for 30 years. Well, it keeps growing and getting more and bigger and bigger. You know, the company keeps buying land. They keep expanding. They're very successful in what they're doing. They're doing a really good job of it. But that's to your disadvantage. They're taking advantage of you and your well-being by leaving behind these chemicals, by applying these chemicals. It's getting into the water supply. They promised DDT wouldn't be a problem. They promised PCBs wouldn't be a problem. They promised Agent Orange wouldn't be a problem. All of these things turned into problems. They destroyed people's lives, and they're going to do that here in Maui County. The few jobs that are associated with the chemical manufacturing process that they call farming are not worth the risk. There are more jobs that would be provided if they shifted to growing different crops, and even more money can be made. I mean, they're doing it here because it's convenient for them.
Yeah.
And because we're letting them.
Well, you know, that drift, the chemical drift, I'm concerned, especially here on Maui,
Yeah.
The North Kihei. Who resides in North Kihei? And then the wind that blows up the slope,
Sure.
going up to Haleakala. Who resides just Mauka from their fields?
Hawaiian homelands.
Hawaiian homes, Waiahuli. So the residents, the Hawaiian population that's there, you know, they're not, you know, if I can say this, yeah. Wake up, yeah? This is where we gotta do. We gotta pay attention. We have kuleana to protect the people, to protect the children, to protect the elders. We get kuleana about taking care of our Aina, taking care of our water sources, protecting our ocean. That's why I am concerned, because hindsight, I use hindsight right here on this island. Yeah, 40 years ago, DDT. Till today, we cannot drink that water. Okay, so what about the future?
Yeah.
And take it further, our grandchildren's grandchildren. If we do not take a stand now, and we allow the pollution to continue, allow them to drench our soil with poison, allow them to eventually reach our water table. Once the water is tainted and polluted, who's going to survive drinking it? And then our grandchildren's grandchildren going to reflect back on us and said, wow, Tutu, you guys had a chance to stop this. This is what we get. We get dead soil and we get polluted water. Thank you. No ways.
No, it's not right.
Yeah.
It's not right. On so many different levels.
So I want to say this, is that just on this initiative for the moratorium, when it comes date for the November election, if you're born and raised here, you know what I'm talking about the kuleana that we get, the responsibility that we get. When we go to the voting polls, and I encourage everyone, vote. Yeah? Vote. When we go vote, if you are in doubt, and your na'au, we know what we talk about our na'au, that little fluttering in our gut. It's telling us, you know what is right. You know what you're supposed to do. If there's a doubt whether it's safe or not, then the vote is yes. Yes to this. We're not saying no. We're just saying prove to us and make sure that this is safe for the people and for the land and for the future.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's just saying, prove to us that this is safe. So, vote yes. That's all we got to do. Vote yes to be safe.
And even, you know, if you happen to work for these agrochemical companies, nobody knows how you vote. When you go into the voting booth, it's a private thing. That's between you and your spirit. and you have the opportunity to vote the way your conscience and the way your kuleana dictates. They won't know. They won't know. We're affected on so many different levels here. We're not happy with the style of agriculture that is taking over these islands. It's a chemical-based industrial process. They're not growing food. So we're receiving lots of chemicals and pesticides in the environment, and we're not generating anything that anybody can eat. That's kind of messed up. And that's one of the things that this whole discussion is bringing to the fore, is that there's more and more talk about food sustainability and food sovereignty. The recent threat of a hurricane, put into people's minds, I think maybe a little bit. They saw empty store shelves, in the supermarkets. Well, there's only a 3-day food supply here on island at any given time. If the barges stop coming, if the boats from the mainland stop importing food into these islands, there would be no food to eat. And that has to change. It's just stupid to let it be that way. And it's that way because of corporate interests that have designed a process to strip you of your money and your rights. And we owe it to ourselves to find an alternative. And, there are programs, and I'm so thankful, for the work that you've been doing, Alika, because that's the positive thing that we can point to. It's not just make believe that we can create food sustainability. This man's doing it, and people with him are doing it with farming practices, natural farming practices. Researching and developing new forms of farming practices that are appropriate for the tropics to make our plentiful, the abundance here even better. Talk to me a little bit about the natural farming that you do and how it's different.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of, energy going towards food.
Yeah.
And that's my focused passion now is just to grow food.
Right.
Looking at this island, and so there's a lot of projects that we have on board currently right now, all from one end of the island to the other end of the island. And so there's, we primarily do natural farming, or what we call Hawaiian indigenous natural farming. Mm-hmm. We use some of the methods of our ancestors and traditional knowledge, and take on other contemporary forms such as organic practices and now Korean natural farming practices.
And the historic Hawaiian practices specifically are now being taught at university level on the mainland.
Yeah.
There are aspects, there are particular things that the Hawaiians used to do with their farming that is recognized as unique and important, and those practices are being applied worldwide.
Yeah, so we're just focused on figuring out how to grow food on a large scale level. I was able to find a research published paper from Hawaii County. Mm-hmm. The mayor of Big Island. Mm-hmm. had some folks do a research on food sustainability and right. food, and so it came down to primarily, what are we eating? What are we consuming?
Right.
And so you look at, there's so many different markets, what are the locals eating? What are the recent residents eating? Mm-hmm. What are the local restaurants supplying? Right. Yeah. Then you go to the hotels, what are they consuming? The hotels, there's a lot of visitors, their diet a little bit different. So you'll see a different trend of produce that's being consumed.
Right.
But if we combine all of that, and we look at, okay, what's this island consuming?
Right.
And of what we're consuming, what is being imported?
Right.
And of what's being imported, what can we grow?
Yeah.
And for me, I said, there's no reason why we should be buying and eating a banana from Ecuador,
Right.
or a mango from Chile.
Right.
You know, when I know we have some of the best conditions for producing it.
Right.
Okay, so until recently, I look at this and say, okay, Wailuku Sugar shut down, Maui Pineapple shut down, Pioneer Mills shut down.
Mm-hmm.
These three large agricultural entities have freed up so much land. And I know a lot of them kind of jockeyed and waded through the Land Use Commission and trying to,
They're trying to protect their water rights.
But a lot of it is how to move them towards suburbia.
Yeah.
You know, they're trying to move them towards, how can I get a shopping center on this property, you know? Right. But still, even if a percentage of that went that way, they'll still leave us with thousands of acres
land
to farm.
Yeah.
So now, who's going to farm it?
Right.
Where do we look at our future farmers? We have a school garden network started in pretty much all the elementary schools.
Right.
Then you follow them up to the middle school. Where are we at in high school farming? One time, Maui was top dog, FFA, Future Farmers of America.
Uh-huh.
Now, last year I had a meeting with the representative on the national level about how to instill revitalize FFA here.
Right.
And so now we're trying to figure that out. But we need the support and the commitment from the principals of the high schools to reinvigorate the farming program.
And even the state. I mean, the state used to spend a lot of money on supporting agriculture, but now they've just let the corporations do it all. So the state is not pumping money into the agricultural sector in any kind of developmental way. They're not seeding,
What is our state budget for agriculture? Someone quoted me was 0.4%.
That's nothing.
0.4% for agriculture.
Right.
And I said, my goal is to just double it. If I can get to 1%, spent on agriculture and on growing food,
And it's not just food. I mean, you've spoken in the past about value-added products.
Right.
So it's not just growing food to table. The hotel industry, the visitor industry, is engaged in this farm-to-table modality because there's a affluent lifestyle of health and sustainability consumer group that is a big part of the people that come to Maui County to vacation. And they're looking for clean experiences. They're looking for holistic experiences that are healing, that are health-oriented. And in the food, they're looking for organics. And the studies showed that the surveys of these consumers used to look for organic. That was their buzzword.
Right.
And in this past year, that's been eclipsed. Now these same people that are looking to base their spending decisions are specifically looking for non-GMO. And for as much as Maui County is associated with GMOs and pesticides, between now and November, it's all anybody's going to be talking about Maui, is this GMO initiative that is going to work against the consumers making the choice to come to Maui County and have their vacation experiences here. But it also puts at risk the value-added products, because this notion that there's a brand, Maui as a brand, and made on Maui as a brand, that's going to be tarnished, because the public is going to get it into their heads that Maui equates with GMO and pesticides. You can't get away from it. And it's another example of how this chemical manufacturer has slowly worked its way into the fabric of this particular society, and they're doing a disservice to you and everyone in this community.
Yeah.
It's goofy stuff. It really is amazing. But an important aspect of it is to show people that there are other ways to do farming. What they're doing is not farming. They are chemical companies. They're not farmers. And they will say that they are, but it's just not the truth.
Yeah, and so some of the, I attended the county council hearings and heard the testimony of some of the fellow workers of the biotech companies, and a lot of the testimony was jobs.
Yes, most of it.
And you look at it and you say, well, if you do organic farming, at the minimum, high intensity, you'll have 4 workers per acre. You have 100 acres, you have 400 workers.
Right. That's all they have anyway.
Yeah. 200 acres, 800 workers. Currently, right now, we're working on a potential project of creating an all-organic / natural farmed ag park. Anywhere from 160 acres to 200 acres, and hoping that the agencies, the private landowner who wants to see the land used from a natural or organic farmed way, and the interest of expanding agricultural activity on this island is there, and so I've been, having meetings pretty much every week on one end of the island to the other end of the island, just looking at different non-GMO agricultural related opportunities and businesses for the island people. And as I shared with you off camera earlier, was that it's not, it's one thing to go farm to table, and when you follow farm to table, you're pretty much taking it from the farm to the restaurant. But for me, I go farm to mouth, and I want to go beyond the restaurant, and so along the way, one of the first goals was, one, lower the island's imports. Whatever we're consuming and it's not from here and we can grow it, we grow it. So lower our island's imports. Number 2, increase career and job opportunities for our people. And so how do we do that? Not everybody wants to be playing in the dirt. However, if our products that we grow, we're able to follow through with it into value-added businesses and products that will go beyond just a fresh product that ends at a restaurant
or a farmer's market.
You need to take it further, and so you'll create.
There's processing jobs. It's not just farming jobs we're talking about. When you get into value-added products, then you're talking about processing the foods, whether it's making potato chips or it's making macadamia candy or coconut this or whatever it is. Then you have jobs that are associated with that, the packaging, the marketing, the distribution, the administration. You develop an entire industry, and this is what the state needs to be seeding. This is what the state needs to be contributing to the agricultural industry, to have an industry that's independent of these large corporations. We can make more money for this community doing local growing and local creation of consumer products than any corporation is going to put back into this community. We can do it better ourselves, and this is an opportunity to send that message. This is an opportunity to make that happen. That's why this is happening, and that's why the corporations are spending so much money in Maui County to stop it. And we really have, the kuleana is really what it's about.
Yeah. So, we're, one is to protect our resources and to protect our people. The other thing is you need to allow their future to exist. And so with that, we need to look at food safety, food sustainability, and addressing these other issues on the island. But yeah, it starts with our involvement right here. We have a very unique opportunity this year.
Yeah.
I look at this and I said, the saying was, power to the people, and so a lot of people get all, yeah, right, yeah. Well, the cycle comes around every election year,
right.
And so when it comes for election, we have the power. The unique thing about this is this GMO moratorium is just like a political candidate.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
We are running for a political position.
Right.
And the position is yes. Vote yes, say yes against for this GMO moratorium, so that all we're asking is prove to us whatever style of farming you're doing is safe for our people.
Yep.
And our resources.
Yep.
And if it's safe, then no problem.
Yep.
But prove to us that it's safe.
Yep.
And that's
a really important thing, because the federal government is not doing it. The state government has no ability to do it, and the county has no ability to do it. They're not paying attention. They're just taking the information that they're fed by the corporations. They're just taking the chemical industry's word for it that what they're doing here is safe. There's no reporting of it, and we're not asking for a ban. This could have been a ban. I mean, no. and some of the other agencies that are involved in the GMO world were wanted when we were writing the law and figuring out what it was that we were going to do politically. There was pressure on the Shaka organization that we should be doing a ban, and we said, you know what? No, a ban is not reasonable. That just takes everything off the table. It's not a reasonable thing. We are reasonable people. We just want to know what's safe. Because the EPA can't tell you what's safe. The FDA can't tell you what's safe. They don't test. They don't know. They just take the company's word for it. And the studies that the company presented here in Maui County, that stack of 1,600, 2,000 papers, most of those studies have nothing to do with safety, with human safety. They don't. They have to do with other stuff. They don't have the critical mass of support that they say they have. It just isn't there. They say that there's a consensus on the safety. There is no consensus. The consensus that exists is only among the scientists that are closely associated with making their money, making their living from these processes, from this stuff. Independent scientists say there's no consensus. We don't believe it's safe. It requires more testing. And we just want to know here in Maui County, specifically to the practices in Maui County. What are they spraying? When are they spraying it? In what combinations? And what does that mean for your kids, you yourself? What does it mean for the Aina? And that's why this whole thing exists. By virtue of a clause in the Hawaii State Constitution, that says that the public interest resources are to be protected. Not every state has that. Hawaii is pretty unique in literally giving a voice to the Aina, giving a voice to the land. And it's with an understanding of kuleana, with an understanding that the people have a responsibility to speak out if something wrong, if something bad is happening, if there's a trespass against these public resources. We, the people, have a responsibility to speak up and ask questions of the leadership. And that's what we're doing. It's not being done to destroy farmers. It will have very little impact on local farmers who are not part of the GMO breeding programs. It's not intended for them. We're not, it's not a ban on pesticides. We're not saying you have to farm organically. That's not what's going on here. This is specifically targeted towards the chemical companies that have practices that they do not divulge, that are using materials in their fields in secret ways, and they're using you as guinea pigs. The reason they chose, Hawaii to do this stuff, part of what they do is genetically or modified organisms. These are new life forms that have never existed before on the planet, and they are releasing these things into the open fields as tests. And one of the reasons that this takes place here in Hawaii, it's like Jurassic Park, the movie. They have some chance of containing it if and when something goes horribly wrong. And it just kind of, it's astounding to me that these scientists have the arrogance to say that they know better than nature, that they can modify these organisms in a way that they know what's going on. Well, that's just not true. More and more studies are coming out, more and more scientists are getting, are seeing the reality of it, that some of what they do is good, and some of it is way off base. It's purely profit driven, and it's not right, and it's downright dangerous. It's dangerous to you, it's dangerous to your children, it's dangerous to everybody. And there needs to be better accountability, and this moratorium is one step in creating that.
Yeah, and I think if I can share why I'm here, it's really about empowerment, or encouraging the people to empower themselves and believe that you do have a say for your future. This vote will allow that to happen. We just need to believe that your vote, your one vote counts to make the change so that we are safe. That's, the people just gotta believe and empower themselves that, it's worth getting up that morning in November and casting that vote to protect your grandchildren's future.
And we have an opportunity. There are two things that you can get an absentee ballot to make it easier on you to vote, that you don't have to go to the polls on voting day. You can send your absentee ballot in ahead of time to make it easy. You'll be able to also even go down to the county clerk's office prior to the actual voting day, Tuesday in November. The polls are open early there, so if it's inconvenient for you to get there on election day, there are other ways to do it to make it easy for you. If you go to shakamovement.org, we've got an explanation of the things that you can do, how to register to vote. You have to register to vote. If you haven't registered to vote, please register to vote. It's a necessary part of the process.
I think the deadline is October 6th.
I believe that's correct. You've got to do that. Register to vote so that come November, you can vote, because your vote does count. We only had, we had a Senate race here in the primaries, and the 6th district between Roz Baker and Teresa Amato. And the difference was 452 votes, I think, was the difference between two candidates with drastically different perspectives on corporate entitlements and how the public is best served. That's not a lot of votes.
And that's where I think the realness of this opportunity comes in. The realness of casting that one vote is important, because let's try to do some math here. Shaka was able to register 19,000
petition signatures.
Petition signatures of 19,000. If we were able to definitely get all 19,000 legally registered voters
Right.
and casting that vote. That's 19,000. On an off-presidential election year, you can probably win around 25, 26. So how much short are we if all 19 came?
Well, yeah.
So we really need 7,000 new voters to come on board. Okay, what we're looking for is who's voted before, consider yes. And who's never registered to vote, now is the time. Urgency is now to protect our future. Yeah. So if we can gain 25,000 votes, we have a good shot of taking back control and making sure our people, our children, our water and its resources will be protected. So the power is in the vote. All I can encourage is everyone to believe and empower themselves. Tell the rest of the Ohana, register to vote and vote.
You know, some people think that voting will put them into the system, as it were, and that they're trying to stay out of the system. Well, for instance, like with jury duty, jurors are not picked from the voter registration rolls. Maybe it's a contributing factor, but that's not the only way that they're picked. If you have a driver's license, you're in the jury pool already. So not registering to vote doesn't keep you out of that system. That's a misbelief on a lot of people's parts. So there is no reason not to register to vote. Please do register to vote and exercise your rights. It's hugely, hugely, hugely important. Before they take the right away. Because in the legislature twice now, they have tried to create right to farm bills. And you can bet that there's going to be another one coming up in the next legislative session to carve out the rights of the agrochemical companies so that they are protected, that their practices are protected against you. If you decide that you don't want them here, you're not going to have a say in the matter. And there are people that you may have voted for that are in office in this state that are taking actions that are against your best interest. They are taking actions that totally benefit the corporate structure and their corporate profits and are not in your best interests. And you need to be aware of those people, and you need to be aware that those things happen here, and it has to stop. Alika, thank you so much for your time and here today, and for your time and energies and everything that you're doing, working with kids, bringing farming practices, an opportunity to have an organic alternative to a food farming cooperative. There are, the county has an ag program. Mm-hmm. You were telling me that it's 30% fallow. Yeah. That people aren't using it because it's a chemical environment. Yeah. And there are people that want access to farmland and water in an organic environment that doesn't rely on the heavy pesticide and chemical use. And that's an initiative that needs to be supported. You'll be hearing more about it, because we're not just about stopping what's going on. We're about creating the solutions to what goes on next, and how to bring Maui County into a better place, a safer place, a more stable place for everybody.
We have, I don't know when this is aired, but this weekend.
It'll be beyond where we're not that fast.
But we have several workshops always lined up.
You got something coming up at the end of the month. In
natural farming, we do one on natural farming for pig production, natural farming for chicken production. Then we also have natural farming methods of how to make microorganisms and make your own fertilizers. So we'll have a lot of these kinds of workshops for the public and everyone to participate.
Where can people go to learn about those
They can
things?
probably follow along at the university. I said Eco Adventure. They usually have postings there on when the courses are.
Right. And the Shaka movement supports the work that Alika is doing, so there'll be notice of those things on the Shaka website as well, shakamovement.org.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you
Yep.
for everything,
Aloha.
and thank you for watching this installment of the Shaka Movement's Malama Aina show. We'll be back next week with more discussion on this issue. It's all anybody's going to be talking about Maui County between now and November is GMOs and pesticide exposure and experimentation. So much aloha and mahalo for watching. Aloha.
Aloha.